Good evening and welcome to episode 5 and hopefully the last episode of Bay City Polars, the music podcast where we set out to try and establish what we thought were the 30 greatest Scottish songs ever made. To do that, we set up a number of polls and discussions on Twitter X, which we've had some fun with. We'll come on to that. And we then interspersed that with some podcasts chatting about the results and adding a bit of sort of flavour around that. So tonight will hopefully be the last one that we'll have a chat because the voting's now finished, thankfully. So we've got some of our friends on tonight. We have Colleen Biddy. Good evening, Colleen.
Hello, Brian.
How are we?
We're very well, thank you.
Good stuff, thank you. All the way from Folkestone, we have Donna McLean. Donna, good evening.
Hello.
Nice and sunny?
Very sunny, far too sunny for me, but
Yeah.
pale and goth-like as ever.
It's a look for sure. And all the way from sunny Glasgow, we have Colin McCready. Colin, good evening.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Really good. And thanks again for coming on.
Have you taken your tin hat off?
I've actually got a few tin hats. They'll get various kind of depths on them depending on who's on at any given point. But thanks for giving us a bit of air cover on one or two of the chats because it was needed. And it's probably a good place to start, I guess. So we will pull up a couple of slides, but it's worth just having a wee chat about kind of what's been going on. So if you just cast your mind back a little bit, I had a wee look there, and it was actually the last week in September last year that I posted saying, got an idea to do something on Scottish songs. Could you give us like 5 songs that you think deserve a place? And then we'll have a bit of a kind of chat around it. And I remember getting the feedback from a whole bunch of people, including guys. I think one of the first guys on was Irvin Welsh. Remember Irvin Welsh coming on and giving us Sunshine and Leith and a few kind of Hib songs and stuff like that. I thought, well, that's quite interesting. You know, there's kind of, you're never too sure what kind of interest you'll get on something, but it certainly seemed to kind of reach across, certainly the Scottish kind of fraternity, but probably a bit wider than that once it got out there a little bit. Yeah, so I think you all gave me 5 songs at the beginning. Oh no, you bailed out, Colin, didn't you?
It's like choosing your favourite children.
I met you somewhere. I mean, you at a gig.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think it was Golden Tree. I think
that's right.
I was giving you a hard time saying I couldn't possibly give you 5.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Caroline,
I didn't do it either.
Did you not, Donna?
I was still trying to whittle it down from 25 and never got near the end.
No, poor Caroline did give us 5, and then
yes, fallers at the first fence.
All follows at the. But that's your class, Caroline. You see, that's
maybe a wee bit too niche in the context of what's actually eventually emerged as your top 30.
Yeah, and I guess while we chat about, I guess like any poll you do, it tends to be a little bit of the kind of middle part, if you want, that comes through, doesn't it? More of the mainstream rather than the outliers. But I think we've managed to carry quite a lot of good stuff through the debate, albeit we've lost a few here and there, but we'll come on to kind of where that ended up. So I had to be look, it was about 350 songs that we ended up putting into the mix to vote on from about 500 or 600, I think, that were nominated initially, which was good. And we did that sort of 70s, 80s, 90s blocks going through, and I can barely remember the 70s one. It was so long ago, but yeah, we got to that, and then it got to the kind of sharp end where we got to a final 100, and I think we had a podcast about that time chatting about what that might look like, getting down to the final 30, and that was when the kind of fun really kicked in. So just kind of general thoughts and observations about what you saw or what you noticed, because you were all on there either having a laugh or taking an active part. What was your take on it? Was it more fun, less fun?
I quite enjoyed. I enjoyed voting on it once. Once I had put my top 5 in, and I liked seeing like the percentages. And sometimes you'd be quite surprised at songs that you expected to do better and didn't, and songs that you maybe didn't expect to doing better. But yeah, I think like all these lists, it probably does become more populist. But I don't think it was a bad final list. No. As someone who kind of quite likes classic Scottish pop music, I think it was a pretty all right list. You know, I could have given you as many songs that weren't on it, but I thought it could have been worse.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, we'll get on to things like Della Gate and stuff like that. We can have a chat about that. But you're right. I think once or twice, because once you put it to the vote, everyone can see it, really, can't they? So it's quite hard to unpick that. Albeit we had things like wild cards and jokers and stuff we could put in, but the vast majority of that was coming through the Twitter X votes. So it was a bit worrying at times, but it did tend to sort itself out, generally speaking, if you just let it go. There was one, I can't remember the one we did, that it was quite a short vote for some reason, 3 or 4 hours maybe, and it just wasn't long enough. And I think people just missed it, you know. And it was a good song. Can't remember the song, kind of good song, inverted commas, and it just didn't get through because people who would have voted for it, I think, just didn't see the vote.
Yeah.
And I did learn a bit from that, and it kind of made them a bit more sort of 10, 12-hour blocks to try and catch people and do some overnights. We've got a lot of guys coming on from sort of Australia and Canada and America and stuff, so you had to try and catch them a little bit on voting as well, which helped. Caroline, what was your take on it?
I just thought you got an amazing level of engagement with it. People were obviously very passionate about some of the choices and quite prepared to sort of argue the toss about some of the others. And that was actually very entertaining. So I think, you certainly captured the imagination of the people that were participating, and a lot of votes. I mean, I suppose it's interesting, some of the bands that didn't make it to the final 30, and you kind of think, well, was that because they had too many songs in and it kind of split their vote over the course of it? And I suppose I'm thinking about bands like Teenage Fan Club and the Jesus and Mary chain, who you might have expected to see there.
Yeah.
And I think...
And Simple Minds is another.
Yeah, and Simple Minds.
Early Minds was, they had more nominations, I think, than any other band for songs, mainly sort of, 79, 80 to about 84 maybe.
Yeah.
Absolutely knocked over the amount of nominations. And then as we went through them, even their sort of big bangers, if you want, like Waterfront and stuff, they're okay, but I thought they were going to absolutely trump it, but they didn't.
The other thing that I would say, I suppose, about the final 30 is the gender balance isn't very balanced.
It's not, no.
Some fantastic work by female artists that just didn't get through.
Agreed.
Kind of representative of a particular demographic, I think.
I think maybe lots of men prefer lists.
Yeah, so that's probably true as well.
I think Caroline's been quite polite there, Colin.
I think it's
we're quite sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And also, maybe it's a really good point, Caroline. I think it was pointed out during the chat. We'll come on to Donna in a second. But also, I think, obviously, maybe the 80s decade was probably the most popular in general around activity and voting and stuff like that. And if you go back and look, the majority of the bands and artists were male. There were some great female artists there, but there was much more male-orientated music coming out. So I think there was a bit of that going on time as well.
Yeah, definitely. Why was no one voting for Sheena Easton? That's what I want to know. And Rosemary as well. That was 70s though, wasn't it? But yeah, I was like, come on.
Yeah, Kelly Marie that was a disappointment.
Kelly Marie, sorry, not Rosemary.
What was your take on it, Donna? What did you think?
Well, I really enjoy it, but I'm also incredibly competitive. So it's like a real mixture. Depends what time of the night you get me at. And if I've had more than one glass of wine, then I'll be chatting to everybody. At the very start, it's, these are the songs that should be in it. But I think what I really enjoyed was there was a lot of banter, but I liked the banter around the more obscure songs. You'd say something and think, oh, nobody's going to vote for Dick Gaughan here. And then someone else will pop up and go, this is a disgrace.
Yeah.
It's an absolute abomination. Why isn't Dick Gaughan in here? Or the Amazing Snakeheads should be in here.
Yeah.
I think I had a lot of fun with that. And I suppose it's the thing as well, those songs might not be in the kind of mid-range popular Scottish song book. However, if you're introducing them to a new audience, then that's just as good, isn't it, really? That's your job done.
I think so. And I think it was a sort of side objective, if you want, to make sure that Scottish music was celebrated, as well as kind of ranked, or whatever you want to call that. And I remember speaking to Graham Skinner a couple of times, and Graham said it's like hell on earth for him having to vote for things because he either likes it or doesn't like it.
Yeah.
It's then hard to kind of compartmentalize a bit more. So I think a lot of great songs that maybe either a lot of guys didn't know or maybe knew and forgotten about came back in, like the Amazing Snake is a good example. And I personally loved a lot of that check back. Because I did go back and I bought CDs and LPs and stuff since we started this from
on the basis of
bands.
it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I also think the interesting thing of one of the funny things was seeing some of the artists pop in for the chat as well. Because you think, well, that's funny, but you're in the vote and you're chatting, and I mean, they don't care. Obviously, they're all quite big names, and they've gone past any sort of sense of competition around it. But
No, I'm sure they do care.
you think
It's the reason they were on.
Do you think Mike Scott's there like, oh, I'm going to get to number 3 with this one?
I don't know the answer, but it's really nice that they came in and took part. You're right, which was lovely. But I think there's a bit of truth in what Colin says. They maybe don't care, but they certainly quite like the fact that the songs are back in the public spotlight again.
Yeah.
And they like the positive glow that maybe like all artists do, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was nice, and it gets slightly awkward then when you see some of their scores maybe not doing as well as you'd hope.
I mean, they're not going to go around and punch Danny Wilson, are they? Start some Barney down the West End.
Now do you know, actually somebody said to me, it was one of the chats we had, and somebody said you used to have done like an Anchorman thing at the end, when they all had to fight, all the news crews.
Each other. Fight off.
Yeah, like a fight off, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been good. I don't know who had done that. Yeah, so you're right, it was good, lots of interest. Massive amount of activity, which is great. Rattled through the songs, got to the final 100 or so, and then we had to get down to 30, which we managed to do eventually. And there was a wee bit of a dispute, if you want, on a couple of votes that are partly down to me messing it up and partly down to us talking about changing the rules a little bit as we went along. It was one of the things I was going to ask you, and I know Ali's not on tonight, but Ali was quite sort of firm on this. So we ended up with a rule that said that no artist could have more than 2 songs on the list, on the sort of final list, right? And we did kick it about quite a lot. And when you see the final list, you see there are a couple of artists that did manage to get 2 on. Just looking back on that, is it 1 too many, or is it not enough, or what was your take on that?
It's a hard one because there's artists that could have 10 on it if you like them. I think limiting it to a certain number was the most sensible way to do it, because you didn't want it to be dominated by one artist. But again, it's hard if it's an artist that you love, just picking 2 Orange Juice songs, or does Edwin Collins count separate? Because then if you want to include Edwin, you could have like 6 or so. I suppose it was like how you worked it out, but I think limiting it was quite a good idea, I think.
Yeah. Caroline?
Yeah, I agree.
Would you have went with 1, or was 2 okay, do you think? Or?
No, I think 2 was okay, because certainly there were bands, I mean, you've mentioned Simple Minds that, they've got a long career, they've got a lot of songs. Just, picking 1, I think, would have been incredibly difficult. And as it happened, they didn't get 1 into the top 30 anyway, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, it was a bit. Agreed, Donna?
Yeah, agree. Yeah. And again, Simple Minds, that just blows my mind how they didn't get any in, but I think that's because they've got so many songs. Yeah, and it wouldn't have mattered if we'd said 1, 2, or 3. It wasn't actually going to change the fact that they didn't get any into the final 30, did it?
Yeah. Well, don't forget, you guys all gave us a song that you thought were slam dunks for the top 10, so we will come back onto that.
That went well.
We'll come back to that. Right, okay, so let me just see if I can pull this up for us. Give us a bit of visual on that. Let's see. Okay, can you see that okay? Perfect. Okay, great. So what we have there was the A to Z of the 30. So when we went to do the final vote, we ended up with 30 songs, and they went from Average White Band down to the Trash Can Sinatra's. Got about 10,000 votes on the final, just under, which was amazing. I was really pleased about that. So we had that 30. I remember when we actually put it out there, you do like a date and stuff, and everybody's like, man alive, that's how hard's that going to be to pick the top 10 out of that. So there was a bit of pain to go through there, but to go back to Colin's point, I think if you just stop there, and there are some songs arguably missing, but it's a stellar list, isn't it, really?
Yep.
Mike Fratelli's, somebody had to go at Fratelli's, and I said, well, I'm okay with that, but if it was a Slade song, you'd love it. It's some bands just got a hard time, I think, because of maybe who they are or whatever. I don't really know, but generally speaking, I thought it was a great list.
I would probably say the most surprising one I think was probably Big Country making it to number 8. Because I don't think that was even a single in a Big Country, was it?
Don't know, Colin.
I think because it's
don't know, mate.
because I went to see Restless Natives, the musical, and it features in that. But I'm sure I read somewhere that it wasn't even a single. So to get 62% and to knock out, Small Town Boy, Rattlesnakes,
Yeah.
Tinseltown in the Rain, A Girl Like You, do you know what I mean? I think that was the one that probably surprised me the most.
Yeah.
In the top 10.
Wouldn't disagree. So I think let's pull up the 10 then, because I think I've got it here.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I think Be My Downfall, I would probably say the same, because I don't know how widely known that one would be.
Yeah, well, that maybe takes us on just while I'm doing this onto Delamitri Gate. So
Delamitri Gate, yes.
Delamitri, they have is it a fan club, I guess? Or
Yeah, I think so.
sort
A fan Twitter account or
yeah. So the guy came on quite early, and it was great. It was a really nice guy, and sort of messaged me about, I can see you're doing the vote. Is it okay if we take part and stuff? And I said, well, of course it is. It's great. Back to what we said earlier, the more interest, the better. And early on, it was okay, and then obviously as we started to get through the knockouts, it became sort of a bit more competitive, and yeah, and then somebody messaged me to say there's a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook going on about sort of Delamitri chat pages or whatever that was.
I suppose it was the Bell and Sebastian Brit Award thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite. I don't mind that when it's like public swelling of fans, and Bell and Sebastian won the Brit for best newcomer, wasn't it? Because it was the first time it was an online vote, and they had a huge online following just because of the people that were into them.
Yeah.
So I suppose Delamitri just had that kind of strength in numbers. My problem with the Delamitri one is I like Delamitri. I've gone to see them for years. I don't like Nothing Ever Happens. It's often with bands like their most popular song becomes slightly the most annoying. So I would have had Be My Downfall of Nothing Ever Happens. That would be my only issue with it.
Yeah, that's fair. So I suppose if it had been Be My Downfall or what was the other one they had? Driving the Brakes on, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of just they're all great songs, but they're in particular nice songs. I think probably some of the noise might have just eased away slightly. I also thought Nothing Ever Happens maybe was just a bit unfairly treated, because it is one of those songs that's pretty exposed. It's one of those kind of bellwether songs, I think, isn't it? That's it's been around forever and kind of almost.
It's a great song, but I've just it's sometimes when you hear something too much, you just sort of go, oh, I'd rather hear something else. But that's not to knock the song or its popularity. That's just me personally. Most of my favourite bands, their most famous or popular song isn't my favourite historically. Maybe when they first come out, they are.
Ooh.
So no, that would be, as I say, that would be my only thing. I would have, if I had to choose my favourite Delamitri song, it would have been Be My Downfall rather than Nothing Ever Happens. But that's just me.
They got quite close, I guess, then, because it did make the final list, and it did get into the 10. Eventually,
I think that was the bit that surprised me, the fact it was in the top 10, because I thought, how popular is that song across the board? But then I didn't know about Facebook Gate and online votes and all the technical stuff that's obviously happening, that I'm just like pressing buttons.
Yeah, me too.
I quite love it that it's been rigged and it's been like it's like an election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's been rigged. I think that makes it quite funny.
I know, it does make it a little bit funny. Can you see that?
No.
Oh, this is terrible. Shocking tonight as well. Okay, well, I can see it, so I will talk it through. So, Nothing Ever Happens, Hole in the Moon, Rip It Up, Sunshine on Leith, Oblivious, Be My Downfall, Baker Street, In a Big Country, Party Fears 2, and Dignity was the 10. So, it's a good 10, I think. I thought Hole in the Moon might have nicked it, but it didn't. So, just the way it goes. So, but two Delamitri in the top 10. So, that was a bit naff, wasn't it?
So who got 2 then? Delamitri,
Del Matrix got 2. Orange Juice got 1. Yeah, that was all. The others were 1 each.
Oh, right, okay.
So it was fairly mixed.
Yeah.
It was fairly mixed, but yeah, what can you say? And of course,
Power of the fan club then, for
out
sure.
of the fan club. So yeah, and I was then getting like lots of messages asking for, dates and times and stuff, the final. So I could make sure they got it out there and stuff. And I think somebody messaged me and says, block them. I think I can't do that, you guys, you ask these guys to take part and then they'll too many take part and you're complaining about it.
Block them.
I know.
Very inclusive.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Yeah, so obviously I didn't. So
I suppose the thing about the list, the top teners, I think it's a mix between like really big bands, Deacon Blue, maybe the Proclaimers, but then there was also, as you say, lots of bands, big, like as big or bigger bands, maybe like Simple Minds in Texas that didn't get that vote. So it's quite interesting that similar bands of similar sizes, some of them, their songs seem to have more of an impact.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I
I
think
suppose
so.
they become like iconic songs, something like Dignity that'll feature at football games and things like that maybe just pushes it through into the public psyche.
It's funny.
Sunshine, Leith's a good example of that.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
What was
Not
that?
big-
Sorry,
not-
what was that,
neither of
Kathleen?
them
Sorry,
were big hit singles.
Mhm.
sorry, Kathleen. What song was that?
Sunshine on Leith.
Yeah,
Just the out with
totally.
the music thing, they've
Yeah.
got such kind of cultural influence. And there's 2 or 3, I think, that are in the top 10 because of that. They've kind of
Yeah.
moved on from just being a song and they've taken on their own kind of myth or associations with other things, like, as Colin says, football clubs and so on.
So
Yeah.
like Hole of the Moon, maybe Dignity and Sunshine Leith. None of them were big hits.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They were mostly scraping the sort of 30s, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not even the biggest hit singles by those bands.
No, they weren't. No, that was yeah. And I suppose one of the challenges was, were we going to just end up with the songs that are the biggest hits? And you should say we didn't. So it might have been populist, but I suppose songs get popular for different reasons, not just because they were in the charts. So I suppose it's probably a nice way that it kind of played around a little bit. Just a PS to Dignity. So again, I thought that was one of the songs that would probably kind of end up being pretty high because it is very popular. It actually originally didn't make the final 30 because as we were going through the other votes, it just didn't make it. And then we had a kind of vote off because there was a couple of songs too many from one of the bands, and we had a gap on it, and the band didn't make 50%, and we ended up putting another one on, which was Dignity. And then on the final vote, it actually done better than it had done on the 80s vote, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I guess it's just who was watching the vote at the time or who was taking part. Just your luck a little bit who was doing that, So
I'm slightly fascinated now to know if any others are associated with football, because obviously I know Sunshine on Leith, but are any of these other songs football related?
I think Dignity's probably been played. Would get played. See, if you got a Scotland football game,
Mm-hmm.
They would normally frequently play it like before a game, but not live or not as the players walked out. It would just be part of that kind of football songbook.
Yeah.
As would probably Waterfront, as would, it's just, and I think Ricky Ross has probably sung Flower of Scotland before the football and things like that. So it's more in my head. You would hear it at a Scotland game, I think.
Yeah. What about Chelsea Dagger? Has that got any associations?
Yeah, it gets used a lot at football and sports, baseball, basketball.
Okay. Sorry, that was just me being very curious.
okay,
I needed to investigate further.
I'm hoping you guys may be able to see this now. So
Top 10.
top 10 podcast second opinion. You see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm glad it's there. Just before if I go back to that, yeah, you guys had some songs on there, didn't you?
We did.
We did.
Yeah.
Here we go. So, I mean, I'm not trying to name and shame here, of course.
Yeah.
But I did say to you, give us a song that you're going to stand on a hill for. And these are the ones I think you gave me. Girl Like You, Just Like Honey, Small Town Boy, White Love, Rattlesnakes, Tinseltown, The Rain, and Hole of the Moon I put on. So,
these were all songs that didn't make the top 10.
these are songs that you gave us one song
That
you
wasn't
thought,
on the top 10.
No, that you thought would absolutely make the top 10.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What you gave me at the time. And I think from that we've got
failures all round.
No, Brian got
Yeah.
well, I mean, not that I've ever blown my own trumpet. I only went for Holy Moon because it's probably my favourite popular song, if that makes sense. You know, I've always kind of just had a thing about it, and it just turned out to be popular. So, but I mean, I remember Ali voted for White Love, and I think they got voted out the first time, and I think we applied the Joker to
Yes,
put it back in.
I think I put it back in.
Yeah, and then he voted for it again. He could put it out again right away. So, yeah, wasn't much fun for him. So there you are. So that was one you guys voted for, and then hopefully this will keep working for us. Right, there we go. So we then asked, what we did was we asked you, the 6 guests that we had on this podcast. We then went back and asked the guys that were on sort of previous podcasts with us, and also asked some of the guys that took part in a lot of the voting, because as we mentioned earlier on, there was some really, really nice engagement. So I thought it'd be nice to ask some of them to give us their own top 10s. So I think we've ended up with maybe about 25 different top 10s, if that makes sense. And this is the composite of that. So number 1 gets 10 points, number 10 gets a point, if that makes sense, and you just kind of add them all together. Okay. It's not the same top 10 as we had. So I'll put up the first couple, and then you can tell me what you think. So that was number 10. Belle and Sebastian, Boy with the Arab Strap. Okay. 9 was Baker Street, Jerry Rafferty. 8 was Perfect Skin, Loico. Okay. 7 was Young at Heart, the Bluebells. And 6 was A Girl Like You, Colin.
Yes.
Top 6. So I think top of my head there, Boy with the Arab Strap, Perfect Skin. I don't think we're in the original top 10. Don't think Young at Heart was either.
No.
So there's quite a big change there already. And it was interesting when I was having a look at the votes that a lot of the songs got some votes, but hardly any of them got top votes, if that makes sense. So obviously everybody had a top vote, but there wasn't like one song just kept getting top vote all the time. It really mixed. So what did you guys give me? I wrote it down. Caroline, Party Fears 2, A Girl Like You, and I think Average Weight Man, Picking Up the Pieces. Top 3. Yep.
Those were my top 3.
Yep. Colin, I think you had Tinseltown, Girl Like You, and Loaded was your top 3. And Donna, you were Small Town Boy, Party Fears 2, and Sunshine on Leith. Okay, that was the 3 you gave us on your top 10 for this list. So, and you can see there that there's already evidence of that kind of coming through, which is great. Doesn't mean that the other list was wrong. It's just nice to see that you're getting a bit of light and shade on this one rather than just the same songs again. So then we had Orange Juice at 5 with Rip It Up. So Edwin's doing pretty well there and others, 2 in there. And then Party Fears 2 came in, which was great because I think that probably got more votes, I think, than any other song across the sort of 25 guys that took part. It was in pretty much everybody's list somewhere, which I guess just shows what a great song it is. Then we had at 3, we had Oblivious by Aztec Camera. And at 2, we had Hole in the Moon again. So it was 2 on the Twitter X list and it was 2 on our list as well. So who's telling me what number 1 is?
Tinseltown in the Rain.
Caroline, Donna?
Sunshine on Leith.
Yeah, Sunshine on Leith.
Yes.
Tinseltown. So, and by a little margin, not, it was a little bit ahead of Waterboys. The others were all fairly close, but there was a wee bit of clear water between that and the Waterboys. So quite interesting, and I'll take your opinion on Tinseltown in a second. So it didn't make the original. It got the top 30, didn't make the top 10 on the voting. When we were doing the original voting, there was quite a lot of Blue Nile debate about kind of what their best songs are. And a lot of people are saying that Tinseltown wasn't their best song. You know, they mentioned, what else did they mention?
Downtown Lights.
Downtown Lights was one, and George Patterson was on, Falling on His Sword for one, that didn't get voted through either. And then there was a couple of Paul Buchanan solo stuff that was kicking about.
Mm-hmm.
So Tinseltown kind of lost its way a little bit, if you want the vote. And then when we got back to the final 30, it came back through again and did very well, and kind of ended up, I think it was top dozen or something like that. But back to our 25 guys, and they've come in and voted it clear number one. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think probably the Blue Nile have always been a critically acclaimed band rather than a commercially band. And probably, I think, as we saw with the top 10, it was fairly commercial rather than critical. Yep. So I think that's probably why the Blue Nile maybe didn't make the top 10, the original top 10. But I think it's a worthy winner, in my opinion. And I think it's the Blue Nile's best song as well.
Caroline, what's your take on that? I always worry slightly that it's a very kind of Glaswegian song.
I mean, I appreciate the artistry of the Blue Nile, and I think they're exceptionally good at what they do, but it's just not really, and I've seen them and enjoyed it, but that's not really for me. But I think Colin has hit the nail on the head about why it's emerged through, the voting on a smaller group of people.
Okay. Donna?
Well, I decided with my top 10 to go sheer populist and have everything that I'd have played at a wedding. On that basis, it wasn't getting into my top 10. So the kind of critical stuff and the very popular, but I like songs in this kind of realm where everybody knows all the words and everyone will jump up and go, woohoo! And it's not in that bracket for me, so...
Okay.
Well, I could sing it at your wedding, Donna.
Oh, thank you.
And also, I didn't realise it was a top 10 Scottish wedding song.
Well,
that's got to be the next one.
That the next list, is it?
Yeah.
I make my own rules as I go along.
Very good.
I'm holding Colin to that, by the way. He said it live.
Do I love you? Yes. A great wedding song. Will we always be happy go lucky?
Very good.
Do you sing Frankie Miller, though? That's the question.
Probably not.
Well, Brian can do that one.
I can have a go at that one. I think the nice thing about it, as I say, it just sits alongside the other list. The other list is what it is. That's great as well. The nice thing about it is that it isn't particularly populist. None of the guys were on any of the voting charts. Paul Buchanan or PG Moore, or none of those guys were on chatting away, because invariably they don't. They're very low key, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I suppose it's nice that there hasn't really been anyone pushing as such for it, but it's still, when you actually say to a guy, sit down for 10 minutes and have a think about it, and the majority of the guys give that song more than some of the other ones do.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's fundamentally a Glasgow song.
I don't know if it is, Donna. Just because of the backstory and stuff, I just wondered whether people saw it like that. I don't know. So,
and some songs are very Scottish, and some are very Glasgow. So there's a kind of, for me in my head, there's a slight difference, really.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, there you are. So we did this the last time. I think, Caroline, when we did the 100 albums, we gave the guys a chance to kind of reposition, didn't we? Some of the top 10. But we ended up with saying number one again, didn't we? If I remember, Marvin Gaye. Yeah, which I guess is fine because it's amazing. But yeah, we've got a different number one this time, so worth the effort, I think. So thank you. I've just got a very quick shout out for a couple of people. So as well as you guys, George Patterson, John Welsh, David Ross, Graham Skinner, Dixon Telfer, Mark Metcalf, Jack Fagan, and Jack Davidson as well, and also a few of our Twitter ex-pals. Jason, Liz, John, Jane, Harry, Marianne from Sydney, Kat and Karen all took part in that. So thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. Okay, cool. Then just to finish, I suggested there might be an idea to do something later in the year. And I spent 24 hours over the weekend just having a look at some of the stuff that came in. Okay, so these were half a dozen of the examples that I saw and smiled at, but I've put to one side. No offence to Perth, of course, Colin.
Who suggested that? It wasn't me.
No, but it could have been. No, it wasn't you, actually. It was one of your friends. So I had Gary Stewart was he was kicking off about mid-air because he kept voting for it in the original poll. So he just wants a mid-air poll altogether. And then a couple of the nice ones, best hair, obviously, which was good. And then would somebody come on suggesting best looking bespectacled Scottish musician?
Can we answer these now?
Yes, please do. Yes. So musician, do you want to have a go at that one for the bespectacled?
Oh, it's got to be Bobby Bluebell for that. I think he suggested it as
He
well.
suggested it, I think.
Yeah.
He did indeed, and he suggested it and then got outvoted almost immediately by a whole bunch of other people. Claire Grogan with sunglasses on, both Proclaimers, and Ken McCluskey, I might add. So it wasn't even the best in his own band,
Oh my
according to
God.
Twitter. So yeah, so we had some good fun with that, and then there was like another bunch of them that were kind of ideas. So just looking for just a quick opinion really from you if you think any of them will fly. So just let me just pull them up for you. So I'll put a few up. Best solo performer. You'll go, Donna. Scotland's favourite love song is one of them. Best lyrics. What else do we have? Best breakthrough album. Best one hit wonder. Best album cover, which I thought was a bit difficult to fall on your sword for. Best live album. Caroline, did you call that one out?
Yes, did.
You did? Okay, on to that. Best song over 6 minutes long. Best live performance. I think the live performance one was more about, when you see things on like YouTube. I think John McDonald gave us that one, and I think he was mentioning things like, remember the Prince guitar solo and While Your Guitar Gentleman?
Oh, yeah.
It's that kind of iconic thing that, it wasn't a gig you were at, it was just something that's came out of that whole world of things that have stood out. Greatest Scottish album, best cover version, and best debut album was what is that? About 9 or 10, I think. Any of them jumping out at you?
I quite like the notion of best cover version, but that's probably just because I've been trying to think ever since I saw that suggestion what my top 5 would be.
Right, okay. And yeah, and what is a cover version, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
I guess part of the debate, isn't it? It's a bit like we started this one and we had the what's Scottish, and that took forever as well. Forgot about that, really.
I like best live album as well.
Yeah, we did something on live albums when we did the 100 album stuff, but I need to go back and check that. I think we did a little side vote on it or something, if I remember.
The problem with that is that there might only be like 15 live albums by Scottish bands.
Don't have to be Scottish, Colin.
Oh, it's not
I
just...
thought they were Scottish.
Oh, right, so did I.
I assumed the opposite.
We could.
Okay, all right, no, that's
either or.
Right. So when you say greatest Scottish album, right, yeah, I see you, get it.
So these were suggestions. They weren't, some are bespoke, definitely to Scotland, but some were just.
That now.
And I think it's interesting because obviously the kind of lot the audience are have a Scottish connection, but as I said earlier, we do have a lot of input from elsewhere. So I don't know, maybe we would expand it. It would maybe be interesting to other people. I don't know. So
I've got one for you, Brian, that I think I chibbed you about at the very start, was the difference between, so for me, best single is completely different to best song.
Yeah.
So like for me, like if I had to pick like say it was the best Scottish single, I would probably pick something like Happy Birthday, because I'm thinking about like a 7-inch and the song When You Bought It and what that single means to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Happy Birthday is not the best Scottish song. And there's like, as Fiction Factory Feels Like Heaven, that would be a great single, but not the best song. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something about the format of a single, and I don't know if that would be quite a good one.
I like that.
Don't know what other people think.
I like it because it's got a little bit of complexity and people will start throwing their toys out the pram again, won't they?
Probably gets more difficult when you get to the streaming stage on quantifying what's a single and what isn't.
I don't care about that.
No, original 7-inch.
No, I'm not having that, Colin, because that was, if I have a downside, my downside.
I'm just being facetious, Brian.
I know you are, but I'm going to end up getting into trouble again by everyone else. So things like, who do I like? I don't know, King Creosote, right? I really like King Creosote, right? So they had no chance really of doing particularly well in the votes because the audience
niche
tends to prefer other stuff and they're quite niche. So I don't really mind what we do, but I'm always quite keen to try and spread the interest factor as wide as we can, or it just becomes best orange juice song, ad infinitum. We could do that forever, which would be fine. But we're right back to our core market again. So I'm trying not to keep doing that too much. So
Fine.
I mean, the best love song has got any kind, you could be talking about online 12-inch singles, 11, 7-inch singles, just an album song. There's so much scope there, don't you think?
If you can help me define what a love song is, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
oh my God.
I know, exactly. So things like the things that are more specific. So I don't know, just say 6 minute long, for example. Whatever I think of that, I think it's reasonably easy to say, is the song more than 6 minutes long? If the answer is no, then Delamici or not, it doesn't count, right? So I think, things that are maybe slightly easier to compartmentalize might help a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not really attracted to the best song over 6 minutes, to be honest.
You could flip it on its head though and go for best short songs. Best songs under 3 minutes.
2 minutes 30.
You totally could, Caroline.
Lots of Ramones, obviously, but lots of other things too.
And you'll get fire engines and stuff back on there, right?
Fire engines, yeah.
Well done, quite clever. Well done. I mean, the other thing I was thinking was that we would maybe try a couple. So rather than having like one big set piece debate, if you want, that lasts another 6 months, maybe do things that are maybe like a month long, but a bit later. We just do it, we have a bit of a laugh and move on to something else, and then just have one-off podcasts sort of supporting that. Let's just get through a few of them, I think, a little bit quicker, hopefully.
I'm guessing as well that actually it would be good to do something that the topic wasn't something that was going to end up getting a lot of the songs that have come up in the poll that you've just done.
Yeah. Back to Colin's point.
So there was a bit more diversity.
Yeah, Colin's suggestion is a great one, but I mean, top of my head, I don't know, Hole in the Moon, Rip It Up, Oblivious. Amazing singles, I think.
But Brian, I only care about the songs that I like.
I'm quite right to it.
Because they're wrong and I'm right.
Very good. All right. I mean, I'll take some feedback from you offline, and then, like Colin, if you've got any other suggestions, we'll add them to the mix, because I'm not going to do anything until late on the summer. So,
best cover version by a Scottish artist.
Delamici would win it.
King Crew thought we'd have a shot at that. It's a pretty good Taylor Swift cover.
Yeah, and also, did he not cover Kath by the Bluebells?
Well, I haven't heard that one, but certainly Shake It Off. He has a good go at that.
Well, that would be fun, actually.
It would be fun. Now I've suggested that it's put me off, as Colin says. Maybe it's time to just put the headphones away and retire gracefully and stuff. So, but isn't it interesting that you get? I think that was one day's worth of questions asked, and I got 20 odd suggestions, and you're already having a debate about should we do them, or which one should we do? Never mind which songs are they that go in there. So there's definitely something in that interest, as long as you can keep it balanced, I think. Which isn't always that easy. So
you're talking about after the summer, so people will be raring to go again.
Well, I might take you up on that, Donna, when I'm scrabbling around.
I suppose you're maybe right. It's keeping it more wide open. So rather than single, maybe like cover version, maybe, keeping it that could involve every sort of artist rather than pigeonholing it down a certain area, as you say.
Yeah, it's funny how things happen. I was actually in the garden today, and I had Spotify on, and do you know the Carly Simon song "Coming Around Again"?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, great song, right? But it was a cover version I'd never heard before by Ash.
Okay.
Like Ash, but I don't love them. It just came on my Spotify, and I thought, wow, that's literally amazing, and you just wonder how must be hundreds of those out there.
I'm sure there are.
Must be. There are. All right, cool.
I've got another one. The best song that features the word badminton.
Hamish is the winner.
Yeah, because sadly Hamish fell away.
He did.
We did our best to get Hamish in, but
he's okay. He's still sleeping fine.
He's got a new cover version out today, actually. So
what is it? I did see it.
Is it a Madonna song?
I seen it was on Six Music or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's what is it? Burning Up. Is it a Madonna song?
Don't know. Don't know. I need to have a listen to it. I'm sure it'd be interesting if the Hawk's on it. So okay, well, there we are. So we've done the 30 songs. We're broadly happy that we've got a list that's is pretty good, and we then had a go at doing our own top 10 as well, which we've ended up with Tinseltown #1 on that as well. Which again, bit of a hats off to that. It's been good fun. So it's been 6 months, and I can't thank you enough for sticking with it one way or another, both online and on video. So hopefully, if we do something else, we'll be able to come and find you somewhere and then tease you back on again. Especially if we give you things that you like favourites and Johnston anthems or
Yeah.
whatever that might be. So, anything we've missed before we finish?
I think the only thing is to just pass on an incredibly sincere thanks to you, Brian, for all your efforts, both
All
through the
right.
podcast and online. I think you've engaged a lot of people. People have had a lot of fun. They've participated, they've argued about it, they've been triumphant, they've been disappointed, and I think it's all worked really, really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Really
Thank
appreciate that.
you, Brian.
Thank
well done,
you.
Brian. You did create a monster.
I did a bit. Yeah, well, I know it come crashing and burning when we tried to work the Zoom at the end of the 6 months and failed miserably. So we'll see how that plays out. And I do have an ambition to have a live podcast. It remains an ambition. We got very close on the 100 albums, and there was a couple of last minute factors that held it against us. So all things being equal, I do plan to have one in the room somewhere and get all the friends together and have some fun. So that's very much on the radar if and when the diary allows us to all be there. So fingers crossed. And thanks to everybody who listens, who took part, and obviously to all of our guests that have come on. And fingers crossed, we will see you on the other side at some point. Thanks again, guys. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you all
Take care.
later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.